All right, welcome back to the STR podcast, otherwise known as the Start the Rebuild podcast. I'm your co-host Tim Fournier, alongside now reoccurring guest Taggart. Tag,
Cracking, good morning. Glad to be here.
yeah. Ian was supposed to join today, but he can't. That's fine. He'll get in on the next one. But first of all, how you been since last week? How's life?
I've been good. I've been working on a lot of schoolwork and work. Obviously, it's my girlfriend's birthday today, so I've been doing a lot of planning for that as
Nice.
well. How have you been, man?
Uh, Pretty good. Visited my friends in Chicago this weekend, so
Oh,
still
pretty
kind of
sick.
recovering from that. But that's really it, man. Yeah, nothing else really new going on. But yeah, so I guess we can get right into it. First topic of the day is just general, no specific thing to go off of, but NBA playoffs. I think the big thing is last night the Wolves dominated the Nuggets, which
I was
is
about to say I have two words. It's Anthony Edwards.
yeah, dude. He I there's been a lot of discourse about like the next face of the NBA from America because there's a lot of foreign players that are doing really well. But I think it's pretty much come down to like the next guy after LeBron
Mhm.
from from the US side is probably him and Tatum. I don't know if you have any strong sides to that.
I think a lot of, contrary to a lot of Celtics fans, would probably hate even trying to admit that saying Anthony Edwards has a brighter future as a future or the face of the league than Tatum. But he definitely does. The way the social media teams are pushing him right now is insane. But it makes sense. He's very marketable. He's got that kind of personality that I think Tatum kind of lacks. Tatum's kind of like an easygoing guy. You
Hmm.
saw it a little bit last year. I think it was the end of the 76ers series where he was like, respectfully, I'm the best player in the world, or one of the best players in the world. Anthony Edwards wouldn't even, he would cut the respectfully and cut the one up. He would just be like, I'm the best player in the world.
Hmm.
And it's that kind of almost arrogant, but super confident personality that I think people are drawn to. And I think the NBA is drawn to push it.
Because you are a Celtics fan, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
What do you mean? I mean, they're still looking good. What are you thinking about them right now with the Cavs series?
Um, Kristaps being out kind of sucks. I haven't heard any news on Jared Allen either, though. So it's kind of like they almost cancel each other out, I guess. Their Celtics are still a better team. I just worry about. I watched them last year, and then in the not many games that I watched this year, they're just soft, man. Like they get punched, kind of in the similar to the game that they lost against the Heat in the first round. They get punched in the mouth, and it just seems like they can't come back. And against a great team like not the Cavs, but if they end up going against the Nuggets in the finals or the Timberwolves in the finals. I don't think there's a team in the East right now that can do it to them or has the talent to do it to them. But a team that's very talented that can sit there and punch them in the mouth for the first half, I really don't. I don't see how they can battle adversity.
I feel like, I mean, the Celtics are a lot more talented, but I think the Knicks would be a team that would be punching you in the mouth. They, what's crazy to me is, so my kind of prediction going in, I just posted a predictions video, but going into the Pacers series is like that Knicks Sixers series was so hard fought and everything went down to the wire and Tibbs is playing his guys 48 plus minutes a night and he's just throwing his starters out there and saying go win. And I thought they would just be absolutely like gassed going into this Pacers series. And I think they're a lot better than the Pacers.
Mhm.
But I was kind of thinking I could very easily see them dropping game one and then fighting an uphill battle and then winning this in
Yeah.
six and set or seven, even though they're the better team. And they still won game one. There you got some lucky calls towards the end. And things bounce their way, and you make a late three, and that's huge. But that would be a team that I think would go into Boston and like, Josh Hart and Isaiah Hartenstein and Jalen Brunson and Dante DiVincenzo are going to be like just clawing at you for 48 minutes.
it's that physicality that the Knicks have that I don't know how the Celtics would match up with. But the lucky thing for them is that that offense, it almost reminds me of a Celtics team that I made a video on yesterday in the past, so that
Like,
2016-17 with Isaiah Thomas, where it's just give the ball to Jalen Brunson, and this is our offense. But with the Celtics, similar to the Cavs who we lost to that year, have the bodies to throw at Jalen Brunson. A lot of different guys who can
mhm,
defend that position. Derek White, Jalen Brown,
that's
Drew
true.
Holiday as well. And that's why I don't really worry about them as a team because they'll probably drop some games just because yeah, they are so much more physical in the Celtics, and I think they will end up bullying them for a couple of games. But I don't worry about them losing to a team like that. It's a team that has great talent all over the floor and is more physical than the Celtics. Another problem with the Celtics as well is you saw it last year, especially against the Heat in that series. It's the reason they fell behind. They rely way too much on the three.
Hmm.
It's like insane. Uh, and I know that's the way the league is going now, but it seems like with the Celtics, it's almost late 2010s Houston Rockets vibe, where it's just, hey, we're gonna take a three or it's a layup here. We're getting nothing in between, and it's you can see it when they go cold like they did against the Heat. You dig themselves too big of a hole, and there's really no other way they can score offensively.
Hmm.
What did you think of that call in the end of the Knicks game, the illegal screen? What do you think of that kind of situation? Kind of like the Yukon and Iowa game.
It's I well, first of all, I don't I'm trying to think of what exactly what play that was.
It was the legal screen at the top of the screen, I believe, or top of the key. I believe Jalen Brunson was coming off a screen with Hardenstein, or no, it was Tyrese Halliburton coming off a screen, and Jalen Brunson, I believe, was guarding him, and he got smacked at the top of the key, and they called it a legal screen, and Isaiah Hardenstein was going crazy.
I must have missed that. I was watching the game I was working last night, and sometimes I bar back at my uncle's restaurant. So I was watching it in between running around. So I might have just missed that exact play.
Yeah, I was working too, so I didn't get to see it live, but I saw the clips of it on Twitter, and a lot of people were complaining, like, in that situation, you can't make a call like that.
Hmm.
Which, I mean, I get, but it was an illegal screen. If you go back and pull up a clip, it
Hmm.
definitely was an illegal screen. But I do understand, like, late in the game like that, you just gotta let the guys play. Unless it's
Yeah.
egregious, like a guy is pulling him, then yeah, call it. But
I saw the one play towards the end of the game. The Pacers didn't have any challenges left. And I think Brunson like threw like a bounce pass or whatever. And I think
mhm,
Aaron Neesmith uh
Celtics legend.
like pretty much it looked pretty obvious that he hit it with his hand and deflected it and they got a steal and they called it kick ball. And but they couldn't review it because they didn't have anything left. And
Yeah.
then Dante DiVincenzo hit a three and then they went up three with like 55 seconds left or something like that. Um,
Mhm.
so I'm sure Pacers fans are not happy today.
No,
Uh,
I saw him freaking out last night on Twitter. They're not.
yeah.
They're upset.
So that I mean, so that was kind of my take that the Knicks would kind of come into this guest and this would be the Pacers' best chance. Which I feel like kind of happened, and then they kind of got some things to bounce their way at the end. But
Mhm.
I still think the Knicks are the better team, and they're gonna win that series, and we're gonna see Celtics Knicks. But I do like your take in terms of once we see that matchup, the Celtics have the guys to throw up Brunson, and you know, in that series, if Brunson doesn't drop 35, they're not gonna win.
Yeah. Uh, that's exactly like it's similar to that 2016-17 Celtics team where Isaiah Thomas is great, but there's just nobody else on that offense that I trust scoring consistently.
Yeah. So moving to the West, there's what are your thoughts on Thunder Mavs?
I was actually talking about one of my coworkers with it. He was super confident that the Thunder were gonna win in like four. I was like, "What are
Mm,
you talking about now?" I made a take earlier in the year that, or it wasn't earlier in the year. It was actually. It was like mid-February where I said the Mavs are gonna get bounced in the first round, and then through March and April they started playing defense, and that's when I
mhm.
started this camp that I think that if they got the opportunity, they were the team that would beat the Nuggets. They might not even have to play the Nuggets now, but I just feel like with Luka playing the way he is, I understand that the Thunder they're young. You feel like it's their time, but Luka's been around for so long, and I just don't think they have the bodies to throw at Luka defensively. They got Lou Dort and J Dub, but and oh, those guys aren't guarding Luca. It's Luca. It's like
Right.
you got the bodies to throw at LeBron, but they're not guarding LeBron.
Right.
The X factor for me in this series is Kyrie, obviously,
Yeah.
because you know Luca's going to do his thing. How consistent are we going to get? How consistent of a Kyrie are we going to get in this Mavs series? And if they
And he's
don't get a
been
consistent one,
amazing.
they won't win.
Yeah.
Mhm.
He was so good in the Clippers series.
Yeah,
I think at some point we're going to see the youth of the Thunder kind of show. They've had an absolutely amazing season, and no matter what point the season ends, this season is a major success for them.
yeah.
But I really do have a feeling like at some point in the playoffs this year, their youth is going to show, like I said. And I think it could be here. Um, the Mavs are playing a lot better defense, but the Mavs, it feels like they really live and die by the three as well. And we kind of saw that in the Clippers series where it was like lose by 20, win by 20, lose
Yeah.
by 20, win by 20, win by 20, and then you win in six. I feel like we could see a similar thing against the Thunder where it's just kind of like inconsistent back and forth. And it goes to 7 games and you realize that 6 of the 7 games weren't even like fun to watch because one
Mm.
team was just up 20 the whole time. I feel like we could see something like that. Um, and my like prediction for it is we kind of see that really back and forth series where it looks like two completely different teams every night. And then it's gonna come down to game 7. And that's when I'd trust Luca to kind of just will his way and Kyrie in that situation too.
Yeah, you've got two seasoned veterans in game sevens there. That for a Thunder team, this is their first playoffs period. I
Mhm.
just don't think that they would be able to get past a Luka and Kyrie led team in a game seven.
This Mavs team really reminds me of that what was it, 2018 Rockets,
Mhm.
where it's you got I think James Harden and Luca have very similar like career paths. And then there's another like veteran guard in Kyrie and CP3, and then just all kind of 3-and-D
Three and D.
players. And then there's one guy in the middle. It was Capella for the Rockets. The Mavs have Lively and Gafford. That's just kind of like he's gonna set the screen and roll and catch lobs. Um, and then they just kind of live and die by the three in between the two guys kind of isoing.
Yeah.
And so it reminds me of that. And I think one thing that's gonna be really interesting to watch in terms of more like a schematic thing is going to be Lively and Gafford, and then like Chet like dropping into that coverage and how Chet plays that kind of like lob game. I'm no like X's and O basketball guy, but I feel like the Mavs had started having a lot of success when they got another guy in Gafford and they could kind of have that threat the whole game.
Yeah.
So it's gonna be, and Chet's an amazing rim defender, so it'll be interesting.
Yeah, it seems like for Luca's whole career, they've been looking for that kind of a guy in a dunker spot or a screen threat that is also a lob threat. They tried it with Christian Wood, just didn't end up working out. Now they've got Derek Lively, who's a great option, Daniel Gafford as well. A guy on that team that they traded for close to the deadline that I really like, I think has made their team infinitely better is PJ Washington.
Hmm.
He was kind of whatever in Charlotte, and then he comes here and he plays exactly the role that they need him to, the exact role that they wanted Grant Williams to do. By the way, when you signed Grant Williams, I could have told you he's not good. PJ Washington is so much better than him, and you can see it ever since they've traded for him. They've become so much of a better defensive team. Him and Dante Exum, who's not getting too much run in the playoff, but
Hmm.
he's also contributed to like that team becoming so much better defensively.
Yeah,
Yeah, they are a bit like that 2018 Rockets team. They're like the Celtics if the Celtics weren't as talented as they are.
sure, sure. And then I guess kind of circling back, lastly to the Wolves and Nuggets. I mean, after game 1, my prediction was Wolves in 7. I was going back and forth so much because I felt like the Wolves, like, it felt like Jokic is so inevitable. But at the same time, if there was ever a team constructed to make the Nuggets' lives difficult, it would be the Wolves with their length at every position and defensive ability. And but then it was like, oh, and now they don't even have Gobert tonight. Like they already did what they needed to in Denver. They stole a game, let Gobert
Mhm.
rest. and then do everything you can to win both in Minnesota, and then they just blow the doors off of them. I was like,
Yeah.
wow.
And it's almost like as the Nuggets, you're probably thinking as a team, oh, Gobert's out. Jokic is gonna eat, man. They don't have their best defender out there. And then Naz Reid comes in here and has 4 blocks. It's like, oh, Jokic is or not Jokic. Gobert's off the floor. We can eat offensively. No, Naz Reid is just as good defensively. Even when Cat can hold his own on that end of the floor, he's not as good as Naz Reid or Gobert. But it's almost like no matter what unit they have on the floor, defensively in the paint, they are going to be just fine. I said it prior to the playoffs that they were the team that matched up best with the Nuggets. I
Hmm.
didn't know that they would come in here in Denver and just snatch their chain for the first 2 games,
Yeah.
but I definitely said that this was a team that could match up well with them. What they're doing now, not what I would have predicted, but
Yeah,
it's still insane.
it's just literally every player that steps on the floor is not only a great defender, but also and like puts in the effort for that, but also has like the length that really adds to it. The only player that you can't say that about is like Mike Conley, and he's the most veteran guy on the team that's just a really smart player and defender anyway.
Yeah, it's so crazy for a team or an organization like Minnesota that's been awful my entire life to come out here and build a team that's like this well-rounded.
Yeah.
They've got
And it
so
was
many good players at great positions.
right. And people had kind of shit on him so much after the Gobert trade too.
Mhm.
Sending the 4 first round picks and everything. And it looked really bad at the start.
Mhm.
And now it's like, wow, they've really constructed something really scary.
Yeah, and if they get a ring this year, we're gonna have some really uncomfortable conversations about Rudy Gobert's
Yeah.
legacy.
Yeah.
We're talking about probably the best defensive big of all time, or one of them.
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be put in the conversation.
Mhm.
Um, so that's crazy. Um,
If you told me that,
playoffs, a lot of people that are basketball fans also like to shit on the NBA for its product, but I really think once the playoffs start, it's a really good product.
it's like baseball to me, where there's just too many games. You can't sit there in
Yeah.
January, mid-January, and watch a game between the Mavericks and the Hawks. But as soon as the playoffs ramp up with baseball, I'm not watching the July game. I'm a Rangers fan. I'm not watching a July game between the Rangers and the Guardians. But as soon as the playoffs ramp up, I'm tuned in because now the games are entertaining. There's stakes, and the sport is
Right.
still fun to watch. It's just there's so many games in the regular season that they don't really matter, the vast
Mhm.
majority of them, and so you doesn't feel like you're really watching. That's why football is so successful viewership wise, is because every game really matters.
Right. That but yeah, like you said, like once the playoffs start, then and like you see the best in the world going at it, it's extremely interesting to me, and I think some people kind of let the things they don't like about the regular season seep into them watching the playoffs, but it's completely different and I love it.
Yeah, and you watch like a February game, like a Lakers game, and like LeBron's not even playing defense. He's just letting people blow by him.
Yeah.
But as soon as that playoffs go on, it's a totally different game. You got the best players in the world playing like 100%. They're putting in all their effort. They understand this is do or die here. If I get hurt, whatever. If I'm tired,
Definitely.
whatever. So it definitely is basketball. It's basketball in its purest form. It's the playoffs, in my opinion. It's the best players in the world playing at their
Right.
best. It's almost like college basketball, where it's like, who the hell is watching regular season college basketball unless you're a real basketball truther? But
Right.
as soon as March Madness turn on, it's like a completely different product.
Definitely. All right, so moving on. I kind of had an interesting topic to think about that I told you about before this.
Mhm.
Um, so I want to make some videos on this, but the topic of this is how to the best way to go about making an NFL power ranking equation where you kind of plug in everyone's ranking for different categories and then it'll spit out a number at the end and then you'll be able to rank teams that way. I want to make my own equation and I want to get input from you and other people about
Mhm.
it. And then going into next year, um, do a whole series of doing my power rankings. So I don't know if you have any immediate thoughts on it. Otherwise, I can kind of go into what I was thinking.
I do have some immediate thoughts, but I want to hear what you were thinking because I feel like what I think is super skewed by watching the Cowboys play. And I
Mm,
want to hear what somebody who doesn't have to deal with the things that I have to deal with has to think.
sure. So I don't have exact numbers for this. So, but the general framework of it would be that you'd have to rank teams in every category from uh quarterback to offensive line to receiving weapons to run game to maybe overall defense, pass defense, run defense, all those different things. And I would put them on a scale from this is another difficult part too. I would say 0 to 100, but I'd have to do it really objectively, where if a team is really bad, they're like at a 10, and a team who's really good is at like a 90, I think, rather than just like everyone's like 50 and above. Because then I think that would like throw the scale off.
Yeah.
And then you would have to decide how important each thing is to winning, and then multiply that number by that percentage and then add it all up in the end. So maybe one thing we could go over, if like there's a pie of 100%, what does, the quarterback contribute? What percentage does a quarterback contribute compared to the offensive line, the receiving core, the pass rush, the pass coverage, the run defense as a whole? Maybe that's what we could figure out today. But what are your
What
immediate thoughts on it?
uh man, if like were you thinking of just going by almost like position groups and ranking them by importance almost?
That's another difficult part. This whole thing is a very difficult idea,
Mhm.
but
I like difficult ideas.
there we go. But do position groups. Um, I don't know if it would be better to do position groups or to like only do them when we see fit,
Mhm.
because you might have like a team like the Chiefs last year, you would rank them as 32nd in their like receiver room, but like their offensive weapons as a whole, they're probably not 32nd.
Yeah.
So it might make sense to like clump some together.
So almost do like not units of measurement, but like a group. So you do like so there might be a team that maybe they don't have the best linebackers, but they still have a good run defense because their D line is great.
Right.
That kind of thing. So you're doing it by run defense or maybe passing yards or efficiency, that kind of
Mhm.
direction.
Yeah. So, but I think something like obviously quarterback, which is a one
They've
person
obviously got to be
thing.
by themselves. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then you probably have to take coaching into account too.
Mhm.
Like, how good do I think this coach is? How good do I think their offensive coordinator is?
Mhm.
And things like that. Um, so I think this is overall just a very interesting thing to think about. And creating the equation is almost more interesting than actually having it and plugging the numbers in and then seeing who I think's 1 through 32.
Yeah. I think if I had to go through and rank, not rank, but if I had to put input in what I think should be higher in the equation than others, obviously quarterbacks gonna be first. It's like duh. I think the trenches should be the second in there. How good is your team's O line and how good is your team's front seven?
Hmm.
Again, this is like skewed from watching the Cowboys because I've seen them get bullied in the trenches the past three playoff games. But it's still, in my opinion, outside of quarterback, the most important thing in the NFL. You see, I've seen Brett Coleman, a couple other analysts talk about it. The best pass defense, the best secondary in the league is a great pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
There are teams that like I'm thinking of like really the Ravens outside of market, like they've got good safeties, but outside of Marlon Humphrey, their corners are just okay. But that front seven, that D line, that pass rush is so good that it makes them so much better. And even
Yeah,
the Cowboys this year, Stephon Gilmore really wasn't as good as people thought he would be. Deron Bland still ended up being good, but you go Trayvon Diggs is out, you don't have the best safety room, but your pass rush is so good that it makes up for that.
sure.
Uh, and then offensively, that having a good pass rush win rate or pass block win rate and run block win rate, I think it would be a good metrics to look at as far as ranking how good an offensive line is.
Sure. So another thing, along with the quarterback position, what percentage do you think that contributes to winning?
It's tough because we talk about it a lot with young guys who come into the league. The quarterback position is so predicated on what's around you,
Mm-hmm.
but it's also like with what's around you, if you don't have a good quarterback to support them, they're not going to succeed. There's so much like yin
Right.
and yang between those two arguments. I think it should be like, are we talking like 100%? Is what you're thinking here?
Yeah.
Like
And obviously, this
30.
entire thing is an imperfect thing. Like, there's no
Uh,
way to perfectly, like, every situation is so different that it, like, I almost think it might be better to, like, and it would actually make it simpler to lump, like, the passing game into a whole, where, like, Brock Purdy would rank, I don't know, 20th, but the 49ers passing game as a whole is going to be a lot higher than that,
yeah,
like their
we
end product.
we could almost like you could go through and rank just sections of the game and rank each team. Just go look at a bunch of metrics like and then just rank each team on passing game efficiency, passing game explosion, or running game explosion, running game efficiency. And
Hmm.
then look at offensive line metrics like pass rush win or pass block win rate, run block win rate. And then the same thing for D line, pass rush win rate, run block win rate. And then for the secondary, it's really hard to judge a secondary like without watching film, is
Yeah.
why I think there's so much of a it's like a hard thing to quantify how good a secondary is
Hmm.
because you could look at a team that doesn't give up a lot of yards, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're very good. They could just have like a good front seven behind them.
Right.
Just really depend. Like that's the secondary would be the toughest one for me. I almost feel like the secondary is the least important group on the field. Not to say that they're not important, but outside of running back, they're probably. But even running back is like if you have a great running back, look at the two teams in the Super Bowl. Both have great running backs. Your team is going to be very good. Your team is likely pretty good.
Right. That's why I almost want to lump things together like that, because for some teams it just doesn't really matter as much. Like, if a team has a dominant offensive line and a really good offensive coordinator and an average running back, they'll have a great run game. But
Think of the pre-CMC Niners.
right, something like that. And but you would rank their running back really low. And, like, should it really be hurting them that much if their run game is the top three in the NFL, but they have a bad running back? So then it's gonna hurt their, like, run game rating.
Mm-hmm.
That's gonna factor into this equation.
Or even like the
So,
Chargers, they have Justin Herbert, who we all know is great, but their passing game is going to look so much better because of how good he is, even though it's not that great because of who's around him.
right. So those are some things to think about. And I also got to decide if I want to make this more, like, analytical and, like you said, like, look up all those different statistics and have that play in, or if I want it to just be like based on what I have seen, like, subjectively, this is where I rank everybody. So it's not only an equation, but it's also like a take at the end.
Mhm. I feel like there's definitely a happy middle there. You could definitely
Yeah,
find a middle ground.
definitely. And I think it would be really cool to make a series about making the equation and then as we get closer to the season, then plug it in, see how it goes, and then end of the season, see how horrible it is.
Yeah, we could like set it up and say that this is what would happen during the season based on our equation, have like a predictions video, and then
Yeah.
come back to it at the end of the year to see how successful it is.
Hmm. Definitely. So I like your idea of the I think quarterback is I guess one thing we could do next is kind of rank them, like rank the different like not position groups, but aspects of a team. So I think quarterback would be one. I agree with you with like the trenches being number two. So maybe that would be like offensive line, second, defensive line, third slash front seven. Um, and then what do you think? Fourth is like this is so tough, dude, because I don't know
Is
if I should even like I want to say quarterback is one, or should I just have like passing offense? Because I was gonna say, would like offensive receiving weapons be four?
I feel like if you did it by position groups, yes. But if you did it like that, where you did passing game, I feel like,
Like that makes more sense, right?
yeah, it does.
Because I fully expect the 49ers to have, or like the Dolphins to have one of the some like top 5 to 7 passing offenses, but I'm not gonna rank Tua and Brock Purdy anywhere near the top five.
Yeah. And
Okay.
you don't want to like you
I'm
don't
gonna
want
start
to
over.
tank their stock because they have a mid quarterback.
Right. And I also think this is gonna become like way too much and kind of crumble on itself if it's got like 500 variables.
Mhm.
All right, so we're gonna go
But
passing game,
would you put passing game as the most important?
probably.
Yeah. But you could also argue that maybe like a pass rush or a passing defense. Would you? Ooh, that's another good question. Would you put pass defense or would you lump pass rush and pass defense together as
Mm.
a unit?
I'd
Because they
probably
do kind of
do
coexist.
maybe there'd be a way to plug it in where it's like, and maybe this could be set for offense too, where there's then 3 variables where it's like your pass rush grade, your pass coverage grade, and your overall pass defense grade.
Mhm.
Maybe there'd be a way to do that. And
I
maybe it
like
could be
that.
the same thing with the offense where it'd be like your quarterback grade, your offensive weapons grade, and your um pass blocking grade, and then an overall offensive passing game. And maybe that like that extra variable is also how coaching like lumps into this.
I will say too, uh, to your point about like it crumbling over itself, there's got to be a way where we can, once it gets too complicated, to dial it back to make it more easy to digest.
Yeah.
Because like we could sit here and, or we could still sit here and do that. We could go look at everything as far as the pass game. We can go look at your separation percentage. You can go look at your quarterback's
Hmm.
EPA per play. We can go look at all of these advanced metrics. But when we're explaining it to people, just say like, oh, we looked at all of these advanced metrics to rank your uh offense's passing game. And you could make like a short video like that, explaining it to people on TikTok, and then have a video on YouTube, like really explaining how in depth
Yeah,
the ranking went.
that's true too. So that's the stuff I gotta really sit down and think about. Like, I don't know where to take it from here.
Mhm.
But I guess I gotta figure out how in depth I want it to go. And I don't know. Because I want to do a power rankings video, and I think it would be cool if it was an equation thing where it's like, oh, I didn't even realize how high I was on X team.
Yeah, I saw this. I don't know if this is your inspiration for it, but it was a chart of PFF like grading supporting casts based on
Mhm.
a bunch of different like Pro Football Focus metrics. And in 2022, the best ranked supporting cast by all of these metrics was the Falcons. And I read it and I was like, huh. So
In
maybe
what year? Last year?
2022. Yeah.
Okay.
Or not last year, but the year before. Before they had
So
I
it was
guess
like
they had
Kyle
Desmond Ritter at
Pitts,
the time.
rookie Drake London,
Yes. Mhm.
and they had a good offensive line.
And Tyler Algier. And I
Wow.
was like, that was really the best ranked. So you could also, so I guess we could try to find something like that, or an equation that it really
Right.
highlights a team that you wouldn't think would be that good. But it's like, oh, now
Is
that I
that
think
still
of it,
Matt Ryan? Or is that
no, that was Taylor Heineke, and
in Ritter at the end?
yeah,
That was one
mm,
year post Matt Ryan, right?
yeah, that was the year. Or ooh, was the last year of Matt Ryan 2021 for them? Was it, or did 2021?
I was
Did
looking
he
at
play
the
for the
other day and
Colts?
I was surprised to see how late he was on the Falcons. And I was like, I thought the Falcons have been looking for a quarterback for like 5 years.
Yeah, it really feels like they have been. Uh, like in quarterback purgatory. No, it's Marcus Mariota.
Mm.
That's right. That's like my favorite player of all time, and I forget he plays for the Falcons. Yeah,
Dang.
and then at the end of the year, it was Ritter and Heineke.
Okay. But Matt Ryan was 2021.
One.
Okay.
Yeah, that was the year that Cordell Patterson had a decent year.
Dang.
Yeah, when you look at this supporting cast, your wide receiver two was Olamide Zaccheaus, I guess.
Yeah. Was that
Uh,
was that the year Pitts had 1,000 yards, or was
mm-mm.
that the year after?
That's the year Pitts got injured. He only played like 6 games.
Wow. It must have really been offensive line heavy
Yeah, I
because
could see
Arthur
it.
Smith being in that wide zone kind of scheme also I feel like would make your, and I think PFF has said this, when you run a lot of wide zone like that, it skews the offensive line grading because
Mhm.
it's easier. If
Yeah.
because it's easier, and I put that in quotations because you need a certain type of offensive lineman to uh make it easier. Like if you're slow and like a mauling offensive lineman, you're going to look really bad in it. But it's in general easier to be if you're already a more athletic lineman to like go and like reach block and like in zone blocking and let the running back make you correct rather than just like physically remove a man in like a gap scheme.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that's why so many teams run zone teams rather than
yeah, I
gap.
think that's why it really exploded too. But it's kind of
Mhm.
from what I've seen coming back around. Like Sean McVay was like a big or like the 49ers really too were very much wide zone heavy. And they still run a lot of wide zone, but they're coming back to more traditional stuff. And that might have been like with the addition of Christian McCaffrey, they're just like more stuff is open for them to do. Um, and a lot of the offensive line moves the Rams have made have been about getting like heavy-handed, bigger, mauling offensive linemen, like interior linemen. And people have been saying that a lot. The Packers have been a big wide zone team, and they moved on from Aaron Jones and got Josh Jacobs. And there's been a lot of rumors about how they're moving more towards a gap scheme, and that's kind of like the whole Shanahan tree. So it's kind of interesting how all of those guys are moving at the same time. Like I wonder what that means.
And when I was doing Jalen Wright film, because you said like a lot of the Shanahan tree does it, the gap scheme, kind of like Dolphins do now. That was why, partly because obviously because of Jalen Wright's speed, but Jalen Wright
Mhm.
is used to a gap run scheme. That's why the Miami Dolphins made so much sense to me because he was a scheme fit as well.
Yeah.
It's Ian Hartitz. He explained it. He said that the 2022 Falcons are the fourth best run game in yards per carry. They had the fifth best offensive line by pass block win rate and run block win rate. And Drake and Kyle Pitts were making the most out of their opportunities.
Hmm.
It's everything except for passing. So it's everybody but the quarterback is it's their supporting cash rating, and the Falcons ranked first in 2022. And every other year they've been terrible.
Dang.
But for some reason, but yeah, it does seem very offensive line heavy because if you look at a lot of teams at the bottom, the Colts outside of Quentin Nelson haven't really had a good offensive line. The Texans haven't really had a good offensive line. The Cardinals haven't had a good offensive line. The Jets haven't had a good offensive line. And
If
then
I
teams at the
remember
top.
correctly, that means Matt Ryan was on the Colts that year.
Mhm.
And
And I
I
think the Colts
remember
that
their
year ranked.
offensive line just rumbling that year, and he just got murdered and then went and started broadcasting.
Yeah, he took that as a wake up call.
Yeah.
So yeah, okay, I'm getting too old for this, guys.
Yeah,
It almost makes what Jonathan Taylor's done out there even more impressive.
I know. He was the guy I got to for one season when I worked at Wisconsin to be around. And
Mhm.
insane player, but also just like really stand up dude.
Mhm.
Just
He seems like it.
fun fact, we had a game at Illinois. This was my freshman year, and we were 6-0. And so I had never even experienced a loss yet. And I thought I was like, oh, we're just amazing. We had beaten Michigan by like 35. We were rolling. And we go into Champaign at Illinois. And like as soon as the kickoff happened, like being an equipment manager, like there's nothing that isn't your job. And if there's something no one wants to do, you're getting picked to do it. And on top of that, already being a freshman means that when the director of football operations comes over and says, yeah, we need someone to go walk like 30 minutes back to the hotel because Jonathan Taylor left his wallet there, like everyone's gonna look at you and you can either like jump in and say like, oh, I want to do it, like, yeah, I'll do it, and make it seem like you're happy to do it.
Mhm.
Or you could be like, oh, this sucks, and then everyone thinks that you hate your, like, you're ungrateful for your job or whatever. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll do
Yeah.
it. And then so I missed the kickoff and came back in like the second quarter or something because I was walking all the way back to the hotel and I just had Jonathan Taylor's wallet and ID and then brought it back. And then we lost.
That was a bad omen.
We were ranked sixth in the country, and they were unranked and terrible.
Hmm.
But
I
yeah,
heard.
there's that. Kind of along those lines of like
Um,
random memories like that. We said we were going to talk about the late night finds trend. What are your thoughts
oh
on that?
yes. Oh, it's my favorite trend ever,
So
probably.
cool.
It's sick. I saw the one of the Iron Bowl. That one's one of my favorite. Earlier this morning, it's one of the newer one. LeBron against Toronto when he's
Yeah, the
rolling to the
floater.
left side and doing the floater. I saw that one. That was pretty sick. I saw Dez throwing up the X. I
Oh,
saw yours, the Cooper Cup fade. But I think my favorite one has got to be it's Kyrie on Christmas because the
wow.
angle is sick and the quality is good. And he's Clay Thompson's guarding him and he's a fadeaway. That one's probably my favorite. I
So,
think I would have to guess.
dude, the song that goes with it is called Scars.
Hmm.
And for whatever, I've just been listening to that song on repeat for some reason.
It is so infectious. Everything from like the song to the moments. Every time I see one of those videos pop up, I stop and watch it.
It's so cool. I even like when it's obviously really cool when it's like a major sports moment, but I even like it when it's just like, damn, remember when this guy was on that team and
Mm.
you were like 12 years old?
I saw one with Jay Ajayi, the Dolphins.
Oh, dude.
I was like, oh, I forgot about him, dude.
Ajayi. Jay Ajayi was my first ever like fake uh like I call it fake. Um like I don't know how to describe it. Like hit on like a take you had,
Mhm.
like that I can remember in like sports because I'm a Ravens fan and I think this was like it was post Ray Rice, obviously, and the Ravens needed a running back. And I just like remember hearing these things about Jay Ajayi, and I was like young, so I thought his name was cool, and he was playing at Boise State, and his highlights were on the blue field, and I was like, this guy is sick. I want the Ravens to draft him. And then I would like watch the draft. I wasn't even watching the draft on TV on days 2 and 3, but I was like refreshing the like feed for the draft to come in, and I was like, I want the Ravens to draft this running back, and I was like telling my friend the whole time, and he was falling because he had like degenerative knee issues.
Mhm.
And then he goes to the Dolphins and he like doesn't do anything for like a year or two or whatever it was. And then he has back to back to back 200-yard games. And I was like, see, I told everybody this guy's amazing. And then he got traded to the Eagles and was mid, and then also just simply had degenerative knees. And then he's out of the league.
He got unlucky. Didn't he get traded to the Chip Kelly Eagles?
No, I think it was
No, was it
when the
after
Eagles
Chip?
were good. It was
Was it?
or maybe
Mm-mm.
it was I think it was when it wasn't the Super Bowl, was it? It might have been the year after the Super Bowl.
Year after the Super Bowl. Let's see. He got traded to Philly in 2018. So yeah, that would have been the year before, maybe? Or no, the year after.
I think the year after. I think they were still a good
Yeah, this was way after the Chip Kelly era. I was tripping. No, yeah, they had Doug Peterson. This was the year after they won the Super Bowl.
which means he was probably good in like 2016. Which
Yeah.
does it say when he got drafted?
He actually, hold on. What? He got drafted in 2015. He actually got traded to the Eagles in 2017. So he won a Super Bowl with them.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, 1,200 yards in 2016 on 5 yards per carry.
Wait, was he a rookie then?
That was his second year.
So
His rookie season, he
he got
rushed for
drafted in
100
15
yards.
and did it in
Yeah,
16.
2015.
So I was 14. Yeah. Sounds about right.
He did win a Super Bowl with them. I forgot. I need to brush up on my Eagles knowledge. No,
I
we
was
don't mess
like,
with that team.
who were the running backs on that team? It was like a Ajayi and LeGarrette Blount and
Kurt Blunt, Oregon legend.
probably like Wendell Smallwood or something.
Mm.
Damn. So what are some other like moments, not necessarily that like you were there for, but it's just like I remember exactly what I was doing when this happened. One thing for me that immediately popped into my head, two things. Um, Lamar's, I think it was Lamar's, yeah, rookie year, they had a week 18 game against the Browns and they had to win it to make the playoffs. And CJ Mosley, second to last game as a Raven. I think this was the situation. Had an interception on Baker Mayfield and to send them to the playoffs. I remember exploding after that. And the other one I want to say is I was on vacation somewhere, like in like a log cabin or something. And I during the Heat Spurs finals, and I was like just like younger kid. So I was probably they played in 2013, so I was 12. And like it was a late game and I like fell asleep. And I remember vividly waking up completely disoriented because I fell asleep. Like as LeBron missed the three that then Chris Bosh tapped out to Ray Allen to hit the three. And I've
Did you
been in
see
like
the late night finds of that one?
yeah,
Yeah.
great. Um, so I just remember where I was and like how like disoriented I was, and I always like grew up rooting for LeBron, so I was so excited when that happened.
Mhm. That one was pretty sick too. The only, not though, there's so many sports moments that I remember where I was. Like the Kawhi shot,
Mhm.
I was probably like 16 and I was playing basketball in my backyard. And I came in to stop and watch for a second. And it was right as they had inbounded the ball. I didn't watch any of the game, but I started watching right as he hit that shot. I remember sitting outside of like the little gate that we had as my family was watching the TV outside with my jaw wide open. I was like, there's no way that just went in. As far as like Cowboys moments I can think of, my favorite ones. I saw Nico Elite Takes posted the Dak Prescott evading the pocket and on the run to CeeDee Lamb. I like that
Yeah,
one. That was one of my favorite moments from this season. But I was trying to find, I know there's cell phone video of it because I saw it when I was on Twitter back then, of Ezekiel Elliott trucking in the preseason Cam Chancellor. And I
Mm.
remember seeing that. Like I was watching that game at home at the time because it was summer. And I remember seeing that and thinking, oh yeah, we're going to the Super Bowl. Because now we have a serious running back to go with this passing game that we had. And then Tony Romo gets hurt. And then I found Dak. So, you know, it needs to know. But we didn't win the Super Bowl that year. Because of that cunt Aaron Rodgers.
that was like the
I
Jared
start
Cook.
crying.
I remember
How
when
does that even
I
happen?
watched that, I just finished playing basketball at the YMCA, and then we were just watching the end of the game.
Mm-hmm. Every time I think of that, it just angers me. How does that eat? We sacked him on first down. Jeff Heath did on first down. And I was like, we're going to the NFC Championship. In Dak's first year, this is going to be amazing. 2 plays later, this guy's rolling out to the right. And somehow Jared Cook, like this isn't some dynamic receiving. It's not, we're not talking about Justin Jefferson down the field. We're talking about like the most mid tight end of all time, like a decent tight end.
Yeah,
Jared Cook
he
releasing at the
probably
end of the
would
field.
fall into the most mid tight end of all time.
He's like a Mo Alley Cox. He's like an Austin Hooper. He's like, oh yeah, it's a good player.
Yeah,
Nobody's calling that a dynamic tight end option. And he's getting open, toe tapping at the end of the field, and they kick a field goal to win the game.
that's tough. One of my earliest bad memories with the Ravens was Lee Evans in the back of the end zone. Like as soon as he like got 2 feet down, what the heck is his name? He got the ball knocked out of his hands to go to the Super Bowl, and then Billy Cundiff shanked like a 30 or like a 39-yard field goal or something like that. That was one of my
That's
early.
one thing I'm lucky as a Cowboys fan to never have dealt with like a kicker missing a kick. Or like a double doink of the Bears where your team put yourself in a position to win and the kicker just comes out and
Yeah.
sells.
They won the Super Bowl the next year, so I couldn't really be that. I can't.
Yeah, you're living with it.
Yeah. And then
Can't win them all.
2 years later was Joe Flacco just dominating the Patriots, and they went up 14. Patriots came back, scored 2 touchdowns. Well, they were up 14 at 2 different points in the game, is what I'm getting at. And then there was the Julian Edelman throw to Danny Amendola, which was tough.
I forget that was against the Ravens. Nice. You know what I saw too was against the Chiefs this year in the AFC Championship game was Lamar like evading the pocket,
Zay.
throws on the run to yeah. I really thought the Ravens were gonna win that game. But
I was
you know what happened
so
is
yeah.
on that play, I don't know if it was that play or if it was a different one, but they were down in the game and Zay Jones like starts talking to somebody after he routed them up. A couple plays later, dives for the end zone, gets a punched out, and I was like, yeah, that's cool enough.
Yeah. I was so confident going into that game because the Ravens had been so good. And like after 2 drives, I was like, yeah, I don't feel good about this at all. When the
What do you
Chiefs
think
just, like
about the
walk down the field, Travis Kelce like mosses Kyle Hamilton, and I'm like, God. What were you
Patrick Mahomes is inevitable? What do you think of the narrative that Lamar is a playoff dropper?
like I think of course as a Ravens fan, I want to say no, that's not true at all. I think it's definitely gotten overblown because whenever, especially whenever you win an MVP or something like that, you're like getting compared to guys that it's not really fair. Like you get held to such a high standard, and everything with sports and in life is about expectations. If Lamar's expectations were this guy's a wide receiver still, like this guy should be playing running back, like he shouldn't even be playing quarterback, and he like led his team to the playoffs and those were his playoff performances, everyone would be like, oh yeah, Lamar's great in the playoffs. I think once you kind of like, and I guess it's, I guess the playoff record thing is also, I think that's a little overblown too. I
I
don't
do
know.
too. I think that I had this same conversation with Dak too, is that there there's actually a fun stat. There's one quarterback right now that in their career in the regular season has a winning record against winning teams. And if you had to think of that quarterback, what would come to your head? Patrick Mahomes, maybe Josh Allen, maybe Joe Burrow. No, it's Brock Purdy. It's the only quarterback right now in the league with a winning record against winning teams. Quarterbacks don't play well. Like outside of Patrick Mahomes, there isn't a quarterback with alien stats in the playoffs right now. Josh Allen doesn't have great games in the playoffs. Say the same thing with Josh Allen. They're like, oh, outside of 2 wild card games against terrible teams, he's been terrible. But yeah, dude, he's had to go up against great defenses. Hate to like newsflash, great defenses game plan for quarterbacks. They have plans to not make them not be great in the playoffs. And so when you see like Lamar's stats aren't even that bad. I would understand if he was going out there throwing like 2 touchdowns and 10 picks. You could be like, yeah, he's a playoff dropper. But no, he's playing like the way normal quarterbacks play in the playoffs. He's putting his team in a position to win still at the end of the day. It's not like I don't think he goes out there and makes the team lose.
Yeah, the two worst. I mean, his very first playoff game was when they lost to the Titans as a whole big upset and everything. And Lamar got way too much hate for that game. There was like, first of all, Lamar's had like 0.75 good receivers in his entire life. But second of all, there was like a ton of just like awful drops. And he ended up throwing for like, I mean, the raw stats are not the end all be all at all. He threw 2 picks but he threw for like 320 yards and ran for another 100 and had like 3 touchdowns on top of the 2 turnovers. And it's like, and the so I think he got way too much hate for that game. And then the other bad performance is when they played the Bills at night, and it was just like a defensive slugfest. And he threw the pick six when he was going down the tie the game, I believe. But it was like 10-10 in the fourth.
So it was still a winnable game.
Yeah.
I
So
think with games like that, people just they completely ignore every other facet of football and they're just like quarterback, quarterback, quarterback. Like there are 21 other guys that play on the field.
yeah.
Obviously more with subs. There's so many different areas to the game. I say it to like my uh uncle, he hates Dak. It's like, okay, against the Green Bay Packers, Dak didn't play well at all. Can't even excuse it. In the second half, he played fine. But in the first half, didn't play well at all. Your defense gave up 40 points. You're not gonna win. I don't care who's your quarterback. Or even against the Niners. Your defense is giving up 250 rushing yards. I don't care how good Dak plays. You're not winning. There's
Right.
so many different facets to the game that casual fans just ignore, and it's just like quarterback team not win because quarterback. It's like
I think the other
okay,
thing too that's along those lines is if you're if you have a Dak Prescott level quarterback and you're a fan of the Cowboys and you hate him and you want them to move on, like you better get ready for a chance for the reality that if you move on, there's like an 85% chance that you get considerably worse.
yeah. There was a Brett Coleman tweet about it when we lost to the Packers immediately, and everybody was on Twitter talking about trade Dak, fire Dak, cut Dak, and he made a tweet and he's like, "You think you want to be outside? You don't. I
Right.
promise you, you don't want to be outside. You do not want to be, and you don't want to be where the Steelers are, where you have a great defense and you're in quarterback purgatory. You're playing Kenny Pickett. You don't want to be there. I promise you, you don't. You don't want to be like the early 2010s Cowboys playing Drew Bledsoe or Chad Pennington. Right? Don't want to be that kind of team. Dak is fine. You can win with a Dak. Promise it. I've seen teams win with a Joe Flacco, who, by the way, one of the best playoffs runs of all time.
Playoff
I've seen teams win
elevator.
with a Nick Foles.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
I still
Joe
think like
Flacco's Jamal Murray.
yeah, literally, dude. He like not even just the Super Bowl run either. Like consistently every single time he went to the playoffs, he just like was like, "Oh, I can be a top 5 guy now." That's
Mm.
awesome. But oh, what was I gonna say? The no, I completely lost what I was gonna say. But back to that's the last spot you want to be in without I, dude, what was I gonna say?
Especially with the young talent the Cowboys have. The last spot you want to be in is have a Micah Parsons, a Trayvon Diggs on defense, with a CeeDee Lamb and a Jake Ferguson on offense and a great offensive line, and be playing Trey Lance. Or why is my backup's name eluding me? Who's
Oh,
their
their guy
backup
from
cornerback?
last year that or what was it, 2 years
Won like
ago,
three
last year?
games.
Dude, what is his name?
Oh no, why? Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush. I was just
The
gonna say
last thing you want to be
white
is
guy.
playing Cooper Rush.
Yeah, dude. The whole thing is so difficult. And what I was gonna say is as far as the like Lamar thing too, at some point, like when the game gets that like tight in the playoffs, the whole like you have to be able to win from the pocket thing that people love to like say about every single mobile quarterback ever. I feel like that becomes very true when it's like do or die in the playoffs. And like you can make it really far, but you're not going to really ultimately get there until you can just because I the way the defenses scheme everything up, then like they take away so much
Take away your
that
strengths
I'm
and
not
focus on.
saying a player like Lamar can't get to that level, but I think you really saw that with like Pat Mahomes this year, where it's like you didn't even have the greatest weapons. But at the end of the day, if you can just sit in the pocket and you can make the correct decision every single time, like you can, that's how you really, really win.
And Lamar will get himself at some point. He's way too good not to get one.
Yeah,
But
I agree.
everybody wants their quarterback to be Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. NFL's been around for what, 60 years? Guess how many Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady there have been?
Too.
Two of them.
Yeah,
They don't grow on trees, guys.
I know.
Those guys are rare.
It's uh it's an impossible puzzle when you don't have that, it feels like.
Yeah,
Like
I
you
get
have
the
to be
argument like not
so
being, but
Yeah, to not have one of those guys, you have to just be so incredibly game-changingly elite in some area. That's like breaking edge of like new NFL era
yeah,
to win without one of those guys. It's
you have to
crazy,
be like 2003 Buccaneers defensively
right?
to
Or
win with a Trent Dilfer.
like Seattle that just like completely changed the landscape of the NFL defensively. Or like the Broncos, who even then obviously wasn't playing well, so maybe this doesn't really matter. Like had an all-time Hall of Fame quarterback at least making decisions.
Yeah, he was out there making decisions for sure.
Yeah.
Was he changing the game? I don't know. He was out there making decisions though.
No, but like the defense was.
Yeah, that defense was that obviously even in that Super Bowl, they were the reason they won that game.
Yeah.
It definitely is like everybody wants to harp on the quarterback, and I understand because it's easy, but there's so much more to the game. Even the Chiefs this year, you have Patrick Mahomes, but that's probably the best defense he's ever had.
Yeah.
He's one of the best play callers of all time. He's like they have a good run game, just because they don't have great wide receivers. It's still like a good offensive philosophy they have rolling there.
Right.
It's not all him. I mean, but it is a lot of him.
Yeah. Well, all right, man. That's all I got.
Same.
Feel like we had some good conversation. Thanks for coming on
Of
again.
course. Thank you for
I'd
having me.
like to keep this weekly schedule as long as we can.
I agree. Especially to the off season, even to
Yeah.
the season. Mondays, ooh, should we do Tuesdays during the season? The Monday night football.
Mm, probably makes sense.
Yeah.
Of a week in
Recap the
review
week.
type thing.
I like that idea.
Forward to the next. I like it. All right, bro.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for watching. Hit that like button, subscribe, comment. But we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.